Welcome back to Loving's Guitar, where I like to talk about guitars and how they make me feel. Today, this is not a gear show. I'm just outside in my backyard having my mushroom coffee because it seems to be the craze apparently. But I'm doing the decaf version because I get buzzed enough. I don't need no more caffeine in my. Seriously. Sometimes you got to take a break. Don't burn yourself out like just say you're working on something, and maybe it's challenging you. Maybe it's a physical challenge, and if it's a physical challenge, guess what? um, it'll take some time to develop those muscles, or dexterity or anything like that associated with the moving of the fingers and stuff. That's the physical part. And then the mental part will be whether or not you can think that fast to make you can make the fingers move. And then comes this other part, like associating what you'd like to know or like to learn, and then put that on the fretboard so that your ears can hear. So the benefit of actually having eyes is that you get a chance to use them, and in some cases you can just get some music, a book, you know, and uh, and you can learn some chords and the progression of certain things. And before you know it, you're playing a groove to a song, or maybe the song that you've just learned how to play the groove to. And you know what? If that's what you want to do, and you're complete at that moment, you're complete. You don't need to go any further. You already accomplished your goal, and you may never really need to take some time off from that guitar thing. Because that guitar thing can sometimes, overwhelm you in that it wants to take over your entire life. And if you gave it the chance, it can. And then you can feed it, you know. And but it takes a serious commitment, And I'm going to tell you, to be honest, I have fallen off the wagon way more times than I've been able to climb on board. I too have been guilty of noodling too much. Of course, we all do it. But just because we all do it, and I do it probably just as much as everyone else, I got the balls enough to point it out that, I can be a doodler sometimes. And if I had the ability to tell myself, my future self, I would say, hey, listen, kid, before you do all of that stuff, take that time to do something else that's more, like in the words of Jojo Fry, scalable. So I think there's various forms of feeling like a beginner. Like for me, I'm okay with feeling like a beginner, but maybe my version of being a beginner is different. You know, I don't necessarily feel at any time, even throughout all my beginner eras, that it was like a less qualified, a poor version of my future self. No, it was myself, just not not manifested yet. But that eagerness to keep doing it until it's behind me, but not missing out on what's happening at the moment. Music has the ability, if given the chance, to transcend time. It it does that for the listener, for sure. People can connect a song to a time in their lives, and it could be good, bad, whatever, but it's that particular song that reminds him of that time. Just like that, also, the songwriter has that recollection of exactly where they were when they wrote that song. Like their state of mind, maybe what was the reason for it. Not everybody gets into music for the same reason. We don't live in a symbiotic world where we all think the same. None of that exists, especially in music, and it shouldn't. Your sucky days should be unique to you. And the days that you're brilliant, well, you know what? Don't let anyone outshine your own parade. You know, when people acknowledge you, it's because it was on that day that you glimmered brighter. That's it. And it's nice when people see that. And you can take that with whatever you do in life, you know. Whatever you're selling, whatever you're pushing, whatever you're making molds of, you know, every interaction you make, I would say, especially with your guitar. Playing other people's music wasn't really a thing for me, although I listened to a lot of people's music. But actually playing their music was never a thing for me. Just wasn't the motivating factor for me in any way, shape, or form. Um, I count and I give credit to music that makes me want to write music, but not makes me want to play that music that I hear, but like that I've heard from someone else. I want to make my own music. I always felt that way. That's the reason why I like picking up the guitar. Yes, I have played in other bands, and I like being sometimes just a guitar player where I don't have the responsibility of singing. I could just be a guitar player and, rock out with the bass and drummer, lock on, hmm like a rhythm section. That's deep, man. That's real deep. Whatever our journey is, that's it's not to be compared with anyone else in the entire planet. Just do you, boo. Just do you. Play your guitar the way you want to play your guitar. Follow the people you want to follow. Listen to the music you want to listen to. Play the way you feel you want to play. You know? If it doesn't make any sense to the world, but it makes sense to you, what you're doing is perfect then, and you just do that. Keep doing that. Fortify who you are, what makes you different. You know? Um, if you struggle through the beginnership era, well, either you find a way to enjoy the struggle, be conscious enough and aware that if this is truly just your beginner era, you better remember it. Because if it's not something you can remember, rather than something you keep on doing, it's not an era. It's a repeat telecast. Now, if you feel that way, I may not be the person who can lift you. I may be the person who may see things differently, and that's for sure. I don't claim to agree with everyone because I wouldn't do that. I can't, I don't know what the question is or the future is or even how I see things in tomorrow as opposed to today. I'm a human being, I'm not AI, you know? So everyone starts, for me, everyone, uh, we all start at 100, you know? That's how I see things, and we can only work our way down. We all given a chance to start with 100, like, our connection, you and I. And if I can transmit to you that, my honesty about things and even how I feel, I mean, that's what this channel's about, What am I selling, I'm not selling anything. A toaster oven in the shape of a guitar. you know, I'm just an old punk rocker. I'm okay with that. And I just I also see that there's a lot of folks out there that that are also, picking up the guitar for the first time, and they're like getting motivated to play. And I really like when I'm able to touch with like a certain aspect of them personally, and then it just launches them into like a new version of themselves, and it comes out in their guitar and their charisma, their confidence, And that takes, that takes a different type of guidance. But uh, see, not everyone gets that. Well, you know what? It's like a mother, I guess. You know, do we need mothers? Of course we do. If you're a child, you need a mother. Teach you what not to do. What definitely what not to do. You get the slap behind the head, and remember, you remind yourself not to do that, or you're gonna remember Mama's slap on the head. Okay. And that's just that peckering stuff, that kind of that's old time passed on intelligence. Well, after that, you know, what do you do with all of that pecking? Did you learn anything? Because when it comes to guitar, wow, I just realized if it comes to guitar, maybe a good mama would have helped you on this case in this. But what does that mean? People who are bad at guitar had bad mamas? No, that's not what I mean. But something about like them mothers not being afraid to point out something that they see, and they understand that if they don't correct immediately, that it could be a problem later on. In my generation, there was 60s and yeah, 60s. When I was a kid, there were a lot of thumb suckers. So, yeah, but it would kind of ended in the 60s, probably by the 60s, really. That's because it really was hardly a thing in the 70s, 80s, 90s, but the 60s, yes, or because it might have been even up until before that. And because of that, there was a lot of kids growing teeth out like that, buck teeth like that. A lot of kids like that. It was like a lot of thumb suckers. So over time, mamas got to figure out that that's not good. So the pacifier was much better than the thumb. The thumb, screwed your teeth up. So they would have pointed it out. They would, kid, don't you do that, kid. Here's the pacifier. So, as a person who sees things and evaluates people because they want me to, so I see things and I go, you know what, just transfer that energy. And there's a lot of energies that are being misused, that could be used for, okay, study or time, you know, or just developing your ear. hmm Or, just treating yourself to listen to a full album, uninterrupted. If you can, that'd be great. If you have the record or the tape or whatever, where you don't have any interruptions or no commercials, because commercials really mess up the whole vibe of the whole record. 'Cause if there's a side A and a side B to a LP record, it wasn't intended to include you know commercials and different songs and different tempos and different keys and different pers- anthem genre, everything right in the middle between songs. Like, listening to songs like on YouTube is I think kind of bad, unless you can avoid having any of those ads. Because once you listen to something, the last thing you want to do is then have it destroyed your whole mood and your conceptual understanding. What you want your ears to hear, the whole reason why you turned it on was not to hear something else about dental poly grip and stuff with a good soundtrack with some guy screaming, "Yay, grip it!" I don't know. It's just like, no, I just wanted to hear Beethoven's third. I don't know. I just whatever you know what I mean. It kind of kills the mood. So, But every once in a while, if you can, treat yourself to some like good music hearing, listening. Just shut up, put the cans on, or put your speakers on, and just listen to music. Can you do that? People don't do that as much, I believe. I believe that. I honestly believe because back I don't know. I mean, I'm 63 years old, but when I was a kid, when I went to anyone's house, as a teenager, their parents always had a stereo system in the living room and their television console, which is a piece of furniture. And the stereo system is usually a piece of furniture too. You're gonna open up the top and there's a turntable. So, but every house had like a stereo system like that. You put the needle on a record and stuff. And if there wasn't anything to do, and it's too late for you know the Flintstones or anything, or cartoons are over, then you still got the record player. You can at least turn it loud on in the living room. Whatever loud is, and when you're a kid, anything with a speaker, coming at you, is loud, and you can turn it up. Uh, so yeah, let's not forget to treat ourselves to the ear part. Because that nurtures, I think, the whole soul. I think of wanting to then, um, like, you hear a sound in you, and you go, you know what? I want to get that out on guitar, and you find the chord. You find that all those notes that comprise that, you know, amalgamation of sounds that it turns out it's maybe a major groove or a minor groove or a dominant sort of thing. If it's funky, or maybe it's just going between two keys and that's it. Maybe it's a cycle of 2 5 1s, or maybe it's just distortion with just a drone beat on E. Group boom boom. I don't know. It could be whatever, but it's you. It's you. Your sauce. You did it. You breathed. You decided to breathe that way today, at that very moment. For me, I'm all in for that. I'm all in for that. I like, or like, having people come over, a drummer, a bass player, and sure, we have an outline of what we may or may not do, but we could just chalk it up on the chalkboard. Boom, and just like, okay, just do this groove like that. Just chalk it out. Boom, boom, boom. And if we, whatever, it's that simple, and it's not. It's then it's free. It's breathing. You know, that's the what I like about it. That's my reason why I'm in it. And you can have your own reason why you're in it. And it's all cool. I mean, we're all playing guitar. And that's what we do here at Loving's Guitar. We play guitar. It doesn't matter what skill level you are at. Doesn't matter what genre you play or you like listening to. You know, if it has to do with music, has to do with guitars, has to do with you loving yourself, you're at the right place. All right. See you the next time I get all choked up. Until then, keep on smiling. It helps. I think the neighbors seem to like it.